The other day I asked my YouTube subscribers how they were enjoying the Dappervolk Autumn event, and at least one person said that they didn't know that Dappervolk still existed. So let's get into that. At this point in time, I've made 10 videos about Dappervolk, going all the way back from before their alpha to just a couple months ago about their spring event that ran in June. Yes, a spring event in June. It's a lot of things. If you're wondering if this is like a big update video, no, a lot of the criticisms in the video called "This Kickstarted Game is a Huge Disappointment" still stand. We're going to be talking more so about just the event that just happened. It's currently going on in real time for me, but by the time this is up, it will be over. I'm going to show you guys what it's been like for me on a daily basis to participate in this event and just kind of explain over the recording of me doing a daily session on Dappervolk. The very first thing that I've been doing throughout this event is going to the event forum and finding the thread that is "Water the Plant Above You," and I leave a comment and then I water a plant on the user above me's profile. This will make more sense when I explain it, but this is the core mechanism of interacting with the event. The event is called The Gathering in the Grove, which I guess is kind of related to the Gathering of the Juggalos. And basically the core concept is that you came across a being that was kind of like Trout, and you are interacting with this being and they are giving you little seedlings, and then you could turn those seedlings into objects by watering them. On the event page, there's this button that allows you to randomly access another user's profile, which is great and all, but there's no guarantee that you doing that is going to get your own watered. So you could press that random button like a million times, and it's not actually going to help your progress, it just helps everybody else's progress, which is why I go to the forum instead. There is a seasonal town that takes 0 of your daily traveling uses in order to access. On Dappervolk, there's a cap on how many times or how many town hops you have a day, so you could only travel to different maps a limit of times a day. And for this event, the seasonal location requires 0 of those to be used. So there is this area where Trout's sibling lives, and you go there, and this is like a pretty standard Dappervolk technology that in order to get event currency, you have to interact with NPCs. They do this for the Christmas or I guess winter event as well. I do like the Dappervolk's events are seasonal instead of monthly. I think that keeps it the right amount of special, and solstices really align with major holidays anyways, and that's a pretty global experience. So I think that's really smart. It's not the most compelling interaction if you're not super into lore. I could not, I've told you everything that I know about the plot because it doesn't really excite me to read it. And apparently there's a quest line, but I don't think I unlocked the last quest in the quest line, and it goes away in 10 hours. So I just don't think I'm gonna see it. And it was the kind of the same way for the winter event. The mods had to explain how to unlock the quest line, and honestly, I don't really feel like I'm missing out on that much though, which is why I'm okay with missing out on it, because I don't feel like I'm missing anything that's really gonna speak to me. And also it's on Dappervolk, which is a game that nobody plays. An interesting innovation that they added to this event is that when you're browsing through the site, little buds, little plant guys, can pop up on the screen, and then when you click on them, you kind of add them to your inventory, and then you can transform them into the event currency, and then you could buy stuff with that event currency. So that's kind of nice. It's an incentive to be on the site, and that's really enjoyable. It's something that you could do passively while you're actively doing other things on Dappervolk, which is really nice because this game really loses out on kind of having those passive side events going on. So it's really nice that they integrated this into the event. And this is a really popular part of the event. And this event is well received by the community, by the way. A lot of people are saying that they have a positive response to this event, whereas in the past, some of the events have been a little bit less well received. People who decided to drop the game because of the grind, which is an issue they're still working on, they feel like they're too far behind now to get into the game. Because a core mechanic of Dappervolk is that things expire, they retire, and they're not released again. So if you want something that was released last year, like, too bad. It's going to be either very expensive or very hard to find, which is something that the game developer likes about the game. That's something that they find enjoyable about games, but it's an impediment to a lot of people entering the game. And within this event, it is theoretically possible to make as much currency as you want. However, I am not really compelled by the gameplay of Dappervolk altogether to play that much in order to get all of the event items. And then on top of that, just knowing how unpopular the game is in its current state de-incentivizes me from putting that effort into it to get those items. It's honestly kind of a vicious cycle, because if there was a compelling game to play with lots of people on it, I would feel more incentive to play it more, but I don't feel incentivized to play it more because enough other people feel the same way. A grand volume of people are not playing the game, and it's just like, well, where do you really start to fix that issue? I have a couple of different ideas of actually how you could fix that issue, and it's really just a matter of taste. I think the biggest thing that Dappervolk could do to win players over isn't focusing on the seasonal events, but instead focusing on the gameplay, core gameplay, and reducing the grind and rebalancing the entire game, which I discussed at great length in that video that I already linked in this video earlier, because I spent a lot of time reading user suggestions, and it feels like if they addressed the daily issues that players experience on this game, then more people would play the game. And I understand the appeal of wanting to get the seasonal events right and perfect. It feels like kind of a huge part of the game that there are holidays. But I don't think that's actually the best allocation of resources. And I also think it's really unfair that we have games like Flight Rising or Lioden that Dappervolk gets compared to. And I believe I mentioned this in that video, but those games had years to develop their game mechanisms and then years to workshop their events. And Flight Rising has only a couple of unique events a year. Besides that, it's the same event every month. And it was such a gift for Flight Rising that they didn't have a spotlight on them, and they got to develop and have a really bad playing experience in private. It was in beta for years, and it was like hardly playable for a long part of that. Like, there were months where it's just like, we're not playing Flight Rising this month, and that's just how it was. And Dappervolk has not had that grace. They've not had the privacy to really work on their issues with, which is actually really unfortunate. Like, if they would have pushed back a public access to the game, I think it would have really helped Dappervolk. And that's like not fair, because that's all hindsight, and hindsight's 2020. And it's possible that the developer quiz couldn't wait that long. Like, maybe like they really needed the money. And I would just argue that you can't be making as much money now as you could have been making if the game was private for longer and had more time to really work on like the kinks. But that's a rant. I'm already ranting. I love a good numbers show, so let's go ahead and go over some of the statistics, how Dappervolk is doing in general, like on the internet. We're going to start with trends.google.com. Trends.google.com indexes search traffic, search interest on different categories. You're able to break it down by region. We are looking globally for the last 5 years on just the term Dappervolk. The 100 point on this chart is the day that this search term registered the most traffic in relation to all the other days on the graph. As we could see, the launch of Dappervolk is the 100 point, and then it had a pretty dramatic drop off, and we've kind of returned to pre-launch energy for the search term. What that May 2018 segment has to do with, I believe, the beta and the Kickstarter was all the way back in 2017, so it's hardly even a blip on this chart. I do some of my own basic level record keeping of how many users are online, and this is a pretty random selection of dates. I don't do it consistently, I don't do it every day, I don't do it every week, I sometimes don't even do it in a month. But when I think of it, I go in and I just kind of record keep to see how many users are online on all the games that I monitor. This is just a snapshot of Dappervolk this year. Most of the numbers on this chart are from after June 2021, but I do have all the way back through January, and we could see 3 different events on this chart. We could see the spring event, the winter event, and the autumn event. I don't believe I caught the summer. Maybe I did, and I just don't recall it. And as we could see from here, the event that was held in March, which was, I believe, the winter event, tops out the chart. Nothing else gets close to it. And then in June, the spring event had the second highest number of users online. And while it is a notable uptick from recent trends, this autumn event does not have that same power or attraction that the earlier events had. In this segment, I keep reaching for a word and I can't come up with it, and the word is lift. I'm looking for lift. We have the standard amount of users that come in every day, which is usually under 300 users, and then we see the lift to incremental users who are participating for the event. When we look at this chart and we see the peaks corresponding to previous holidays, it kind of justifies focusing on the holidays instead of focusing on the daily gameplay mechanics. But as we see, the amount of draw that the events have over the general population of people who don't play every day is dwindling. So if the goal of Dappervolk is to win players back by having compelling events, it may have worked like 3 events ago, but it appears to me as though the biggest opportunity of growth for Dappervolk would be fixing everyday gameplay mechanics, fixing the flow of the game, because it kind of looks like they lost their shot with getting the events to pull players in. If somebody comes just for the event, they're still going to experience the negative daily occurrences, the grind of the regular gameplay. It seems to me like more effort should probably go into fixing the gameplay. There is an obvious workaround to the fact that I am not online every day and I don't capture the users online every day, and I feel a little guilty admitting this. So on Dappervolk, there are like a lot of quests that ask you to just leave a comment on a forum. So on the forum games, there's this thread where you just post how many users are online, and I have resuscitated this thread so many times. And it's always with the intent that I'm going to go through and then fill in all the days of my spreadsheet that I missed, but I can never decide which time I should pick from because this is all according to when I'm awake. And that doesn't necessarily map to when everybody's online. So I like very selfishly resuscitate this thread like all the time. And I know that's like against the rules on like so many websites. You're not allowed to like bring a dead thread back. But like I will go back pages to resuscitate this thread because like what if I decide to use it? Anyways, that's like my guilty confession for the day, I guess. I mean, that's pretty much it for this video. Something I did want to mention about Dappervolk is that I really like the bones of the game, and I kind of occupy this really difficult space when it comes to interpersonal relationships with development teams, because it's not like I'm buddies with the Dappervolk development team, but I understand that my actions have real consequences. And that when I make a video that's very critical about Dappervolk, it's possible that a lot of people are going to see it. When we look at the viewership metrics of my Dappervolk videos, the most popular video that I've made about Dappervolk didn't have its name in the title, and I read various criticisms of that video title that said, like, it's clickbait, but it's also accurate. And to be honest with you guys, if I wanted to only get views and make lots of money, the title of this video would be something like, why isn't anyone claiming Dappervolk's cold corpse? Or something along those lines. And instead it's going to be something like super boring, like how the Dappervolk autumn event went, which is accurate, but it could be more sensationalized. but I don't feel like it's responsible of me to like continue kicking this game that's like not even down. It's just less virally successful than I imagine it could be, which is not fair because we can all imagine things going better all the time than they actually do, but that doesn't mean that we have the capabilities or that anybody has the capabilities to make them so. So when I make this type of video about Dappervolk, I tend to not want to make it because I don't think it's really fair to be so critical of this game, but at the same time I want to cover it, and I want to cover it fairly, and if I was too kind and too gentle, then I don't think I would be blogging about the actual experience of playing this game. So it's really complicated to justify making this video and covering it accurately because I don't want to be that person who's like throwing daggers at the Dappervolk team because I like this game fundamentally. And if you've not been playing because you feel like you're too far behind, I don't necessarily think that's true. I think that you can kind of enter at any point and you may have the opportunity to get items simply by looking around for them and like talking on the forums like, hey, I wasn't here for XYZ. Does anybody have an extra? I think it's incredibly likely that it's easy to get those things that you missed out on. I'm always looking forward to this. There's like a bunch of stuff that I haven't released about Dappervolk because it's not the kindest interpretation and share that I can provide for this game. And I think that there's been a lot of really good work put into it, and I'm always looking forward to that next optimization, that next update, where it might just click into place.